Christopher Brennan is the project manager of AWARE, Adults with Autism Recycling Electronics. This program is operated by Comprenew, a company that strives to protect businesses, people, and the environment from the threat of improperly disposed electronic devices, while fostering job readiness and computer literacy among at-risk populations in our community. As a person living with autism, Christopher is passionate about his work that serves and supports others on the spectrum. Thank you so much, Christopher Brennan, for joining me here on AwareNow to share this space and to share your story. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin this way. Could you share with us your personal journey? We're going to get personal right away. Your personal journey that led you to become involved with Aware, which I love the name, and with Comprenew. Would you just tell us your journey there?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of background in electronics. I had worked for a job that does like disaster restoration. So if you have like a fire or a flood or a lightning strike and all your devices are now messed up, we would come in and fix all of that up, which was an interesting kind of role. And I've done wiring and electrical work for like big, huge industrial CNC machines and stuff like that. So I've got like a little bit of background with all of that. But like looking back over my career and kind of what led me to Aware and Comprenew, I feel like the biggest kind of like motivator and like where I definitely like learned the most from was the time that I spent with public libraries. I spent about 4 years at different libraries across the state of Michigan. And on top of just like the amazing focus that these libraries have on supporting their communities, where their communities need support, and really just trying to meet everybody where they're at. It's also just, amazing how much coordination happens behind the scenes to make all of that, come into play. I mean, I've worked on the west side of the state where there's, this library network, which is a cooperative of a lot of smaller ones. And over here, we have all sorts of things like that. And there's just so much collaboration and cooperation that happens, all in service of this larger mission, which is, purely for the good of all the communities that are involved. And so when I was looking at Comprenew and, they had this Aware idea kind of generating, that was what really drew me to it. Was I saw that this is something that is a really perfect synthesis of like, my electrical, kind of background and my desire to really do something that is going to benefit people. And then of course, like the third secret ingredient there of like, I am autistic, and it was a really, cool thing to see outside of, me looking into it as an employment opportunity, just to see that this was a thing that was happening, that a company was really making a dedicated and concerted effort to hire people from the community, provide opportunities that just kind of look at all of these barriers that kind of come up with so many things and say, are those really necessary? I mean, are we really so, shocked that the potential is there? So that was really what drew me to it, was all of these different things kind of come together, and that was just a cool thing to do. And I saw it and it seemed perfect, and I really thought I'd have a lot to offer.
So Aware provides job readiness and computer literacy among at-risk populations, as you mentioned, particularly those living with autism. So with this mission, what wins have you found and what challenges have you faced along the way?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think my biggest wins really just come from the people that I work with. Whenever I am able to sit down with members of the team, the Aware team, to ask how things are going, give them a chance to kind of give their feedback. I hear all the time how much more comfortable they feel here versus other jobs that they've worked at. And you really see that just in the quality of their work and their attitudes with each other as coworkers and things like that. We've had zero turnover, continual growth of everything, and we've been able to like start developing cross-training opportunities. So we're really making sure that, we want to hold on to everybody, and I love what they're doing for the disassembly team, but I also want to make sure that like we're providing those opportunities for professional development. So being able to kind of integrate some of that into has been just amazing. And that's kind of the biggest win for me is I feel that we have made a difference in the people that we've hired lives, and I've certainly made a difference in our operations as well. And kind of the flip side to that of your question, I mean, of course there are challenges, right? I mean, when I was hired, um, it was basically, we had this idea that had been generated through, other people that we took inspiration from, and we had funding that we had received through, presenting this idea to different like grant partners that were interested in supporting that kind of mission. But that was it. It was an idea and a budget. So it's been quite a bit of work from myself, from everybody on the team to build that out, to really nail down all of these different aspects. And there's been a lot of changes along the way. I mean, we expanded the actual work area where everything is happening twice over now to where we're basically a third of the facility. We're always looking at different tools that we need to get to help things, be more accessible or easier to do the work. And there's all these different categories that we sort things to, and there's all this, stuff that's going on, right? So it's a lot of change and a lot of new information, and that can be really taxing, particularly for the community that we're working with. So that's definitely a challenge that we faced. I mean, I make sure that we're getting as much feedback from them, and like that's kind of where I really focus on addressing that challenge is, we're doing all of this to make things better for everyone overall. And it's really important to me that we don't lose sight of the individual with looking at better overall in that kind of sense. So if there's one thing I really strive for, it's just to stay in touch with the team every step of the way and make sure we never lose sight of how, our decisions are going to impact their day to day. So, yeah.
So I love, I mean, despite the challenges that of course can and will be there, the fact that you have found these wins and you continue to find them again and again. So Comprenew emphasizes protecting the environment through proper electronic device recycling. How does Aware specifically contribute to this mission, supporting environmental sustainability?
Yeah, Comprenew does all kinds of different things within that sphere. The part of Aware, our part to that mission is really to take what would be considered electronic waste in a lot of ways and kind of turn that into opportunity for more sustainable manufacturing past that point. We have a lot of departments inside Comprenew that their whole purpose is to take the products that we get in through donations and work with corporate clients and things like that and refurbish them, give them a second life by putting a new spin on them, fresh coat of paint. And, that way a whole new thing doesn't have to be created. But of course, there's a lot of stuff we receive where maybe it's too outdated or it's damaged and it's not really something that's going to be able to get a lot of use. So then the question becomes, what do we do with it? And it's a question that a lot of just consumers have. I mean, everybody kind of has a junk drawer of things where it's like, I don't really know what to do with this. So where Aware comes in with that is we say, what you're holding in your hands is not, just a discarded computer and it's useless to anybody. It is raw material if we do the work to get it there. So we take every board and component and every even screw that we can get from these, and we make sure that they are going to be handled responsibly, for one, that they're not going to just end up in a landfill. They're not going to end up in a place where those circuit boards could be hazardous to the environment. But we also look at it to be handled sustainably. So we want to make sure that all of these things can be used as raw materials for a new product, reducing the need to like mine or fabricate these new materials that create all the things that we have in our hands and our pockets. And that way we can reuse the items that we're recycling. So in our first year alone, we've kind of really brought this philosophy into practice with like 78 tons and change of electronic waste. And that's just the Aware team. Of course, Comprenew's, broader scope kind of goes a little bit beyond that, but just the Aware team, just the people I have on my staff have physically handled, disassembled, sorted 78 tons and returned it to the manufacturing cycle rather than having it end up in a landfill. So reduce, reuse, recycle kind of thing is we try to push that as much as we can.
Wild. 78. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to what would that kind of weight feel like?
The thing that jumps to my head always is that somewhere in my life I heard that the elephants were like 2 tons each. So I just picture a herd of elephants, and that's always a nice visual.
So working with individuals on the autism spectrum requires tailored support, understanding. Could you discuss some of the specific accommodations or approaches that Aware employs to ensure that participants feel supported and empowered in their roles within the program?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the key component of that is always striking the balance between structure and adaptability, right? So providing a clear framework of what needs to get done within the role and the parts of that which, are essential in terms of like, we have to have circuit boards put here because that is going to make sure they don't end up, into the landfill. And that part of it, the because, is what's really important to me and what I think is really important really with anything. But I think particularly working with people in my community, it's something where, when I was growing up, it was always, I wanted to ask why to everything. And I think a lot of industries have a very, this is A, do B, that's it kind of approach to training and kind of giving that guidance. And for some things, that's fine. And for some things, it needs to be that direct. But I'm not really satisfied with fine. I want to show someone if I'm, saying this is how we store components or this is how we handle batteries. I want to give the answers to the question of why for everything that we're doing with that. I want them to understand what that process means and not just what it is. And that can look different for different people. People have different needs. Sometimes it means that I need to do a more hands-off approach after we've given that kind of initial instruction and let someone kind of develop their own rhythm and excel at what they're doing that way. Sometimes people really want close and detailed guidance. So I'll sit there with them and walk through every single step. I'll explain what we're doing, why, I'll say, I do it this way, you can try this way, and, have them kind of develop their individual style in that way. And it just depends. I encourage people to ask questions anytime about anything and everything, because that's the best way to learn. It lets me know what they're thinking about, lets them know where I stand on it and where we can be flexible. So the key is just communication, I think, at the end of the day, as with so many things. And it really has to come with the understanding as well that everybody's not going to communicate in the same way. So you need to really work to develop trust, I think, with every single person that you're working with. Understand where they're comfortable speaking or how comfortable communicating, how they're comfortable communicating, because I stop myself there because not everybody necessarily is going to thrive in a verbal kind of space. And you really just want to keep people, I think, involved and at the wheel of whatever they're working on. I don't want to remove anybody's agency at any point. And I think when you do all of that, when you really work to establish that trust and have a space where people feel open to talk and ask questions, it benefits the people who are learning, but I think it really benefits whoever is giving that instruction as well. I really believe that, and I've seen it too, like if you practice that, your staff will turn around and teach you new solutions to the problems that you're facing. When someone understands why something needs to happen and they're doing that thing day in and day out, they are able to innovate upon the procedure. I can't tell you how many times someone has come to me with a new idea that I never would have thought of. And maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but it really works for them. And we want to encourage that. And sometimes they can pass it to their coworkers and it'll help them out too. And I just think that a lot of companies tend to lose sight of the fact that the people who are doing the work are very often the expert voices that they need to be listened to. And it's really incredible what people are capable of if we give them the tools that they need and then trust them to make their own decisions and make sure that you're communicating with them. I think, especially when you're working with people in the autistic community, you need to let people have their voices. And when you don't, it ends up being do A because I'm telling you. and do B because it's the right thing. And the right thing is different for everybody.
That's such an important point, that the doers should be enabled to be the drivers, right? To drive these different processes. And let's close this way today. What advice, one piece of advice that you would give to others who are looking to initiate similar projects in their communities, what would that be?
I'm going to cheat a little bit with 2 words.
Okay.
Believe and listen. You got to believe in what you are seeing across every industry that is welcoming people with disabilities and discovering this vast potential that has been unrecognized or ignored or even pushed aside for way too long. And so believe in what you're seeing with that. Believe in all of the work that people are doing. And then also listen to those people when they tell you what they need and how they can be at their best. I really look around at so much of what is happening in our society right now, and I truly believe this is a time in history where we can work towards a common purpose. And the only way we're going to do that is by really communicating with each other and learning about the strengths that we have and the struggles that accompany them. And you can't let the differences that exist among people divide you and silo everybody off from each other. You need to bring everybody to the table, develop the dialogues that will lead to thoughtful and inclusive action. And only together can we make a world that's better for everyone. So just believe that that is possible, believe in the evidence of it you're seeing everywhere, and always listen to those people. Because I talked about it earlier, the people who are living things every day are going to be able to tell you what that's like and what they need.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for spreading the awareness.
Yeah.